Can you imagine losing £20 million because you discounted incorrectly? Learn how to master discounts and promotions for maximum profit. Welcome to the Profit Cash Growth Podcast. This is the podcast for 6 and 7 figure business owners who are looking to grow a financially successful business. My co-host Claire Hancock is a finance director, chartered accountant and entrepreneur. And every week I'll be exploring guidance and frameworks designed to help you increase your profits, improve your cash flow and grow your business. Now, you know I love a pastry, Claire.
You do?
And my latest ones are what? You don't even know, do you?
No, I do actually.
The one I just had. The one I just had. Yeah.
Hazelnut and almond. It's not really a croissant. It's more like a turnover or something, isn't it? Like a flappy sort of croissant.
It's called a croissant.
It doesn't look like a croissant, but yeah, you are loving them, aren't you?
Yeah. M&S's hazelnut and almond croissants baked at home, 30 minutes in the oven, 170. It's my new favourite. I mean, I was on the Pret ones before, and then I've had some Tesco and some Waitrose ones, but these are next level. They come out the oven like a loaf of bread, don't they? They're that puffed up.
Yeah, I'm not really into breakfast pastries. I just find them a bit greasy and horrible, but I did scoff down some sort of sultana pastry thing, so I can't say I'm not into them that much. Anyway,
this week, as an example of why you should not make decisions based on speculation, you probably will have seen, we record this about a week in advance, you'll have seen that the news is now saying that they're potentially not going to change capital gains tax on second properties. And as you know, one of the businesses I own is an estate agency, and I cannot tell you the amount of people that have flogged their second homes in the last 3 months on the basis of speculation. These
and
people
also,
are left
we know people that, you know, our friend's selling a couple of her properties through you at the moment, and, you know, taking a price reduction to make sure that they got through in time because the impact of the capital gains tax. And it looks like, I mean, obviously it's not definite.
No.
And we will be doing, obviously, the budget
next week.
The budget announcement's on Wednesday. So we will be getting our popcorn ready. We love the budget. So we'll be sitting down, watching the budget and then recording a podcast straight after, which will be released first thing on Thursday morning as normal. So we'll have all the impact.
Unpack everything that affects business owners, aren't we, that's coming out in the budget, because there's been so much speculation and things are changing. The OBR are doing their assessments, and I think the capital gains thing, I read that they sort of said, you know, if you put this up, actually the tax rate's going to come down because of less stamp duty, people holding onto their assets. Exactly what people said, really. So interesting to see which way that falls, really. But anyway, should we find out what our news story of the week is this week?
Let's do it.
So this week, we're probably a few weeks out of date on this one, but this is the cost of a first-class stamp. Absolutely soaring, isn't it, Claire? It's gone from 28 pence 20 years ago to £1.65.
That is a lot of money, isn't it? I think
it's the increase.
When you think, I put this into the inflation calculator on the Bank of England website, and it would be 49p if it had increased with inflation over the last 20 years. So it's staggering how much that's gone up by.
Yeah.
But when you think, you know, the likes of, you can go into Card Factory and get a birthday card for 99p, you can't be paying more on your postage than the cost of the card. So you can see why, you know, the impact on connected industries like gift industries and cards and, you know, all of that type of thing, they're going to really struggle now, because we don't bother sending birthday cards anymore. You know, we don't put them in the post. We just wait till we see the person next time, don't we? And we give it to them in person.
Yes,
and
we do.
Same with Christmas cards. We don't send Christmas cards anymore because it's just too expensive.
Well,
it's not worth it.
We had a little bit of a differing about our opinions on this, didn't we? Because obviously, actually, this is like a little bit about the irrational thinking of human beings. Because if somebody said to you, right, I'm going to come to your local town, I'm going to pick up this card, I'm going to drive it 200 miles, I'm going to walk it down the street and put it through the letterbox of the person, I'm going to do all that for £1.65. It feels really good value when I describe it like that, doesn't it?
It does feel good value, the service that you get for it. I'm not going to deny it, but spending, our podcast we did a couple of weeks ago, we said everything costs £5, but essentially if you want to send a birthday card to somebody now, you go into Clinton's or buy a card in Tesco's or something, it's £3, put your stamp on, you spent a £5. Sending a birthday card to somebody. And I just think, you know, when I don't want to spend £5 doing that, unless it's somebody really close to me, you know, I might put a card in the post to, I don't know, my brother or something like that to make sure he's got it on the right day. But yeah, otherwise I'm not spending a £5 sending cards to distant relatives and you know, like great aunties and things like that. So, and I think a lot of people are the same.
Your card sending consumption is minimised dramatically into the really important. The I don't know how this is affecting sort of mass purchase of deliveries, things like franking machines and in business, because obviously the rates they get are significantly different. So, for example, and they probably go second class, but when we send mailers through, they're probably as low as 45 pence a shop, but they're we're buying 20, 30 at a time that we're sending and things like that. So I don't know how it's going to affect the bulk buying and the business buying, but I guess that across the board, there's some form of increase that comes through.
Well, when you look at, ultimately, when Royal Mail was privatised, they had this commitment that they must continue to deliver post 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And in 2004, I actually looked at the stats for this. 2004, we sent the most post ever, and it was just over 20 billion letters went in the post that year. So 20 years ago, it was the most we've ever done, and now it's the least we've ever done, and it's more like 3 billion.
Yeah.
So it's a huge decrease. And of course, the more they put the price up, the more that continues to decrease. And I'd bet my bottom dollar that the NHS and HMRC and government bodies is probably the bulk of that 3 billion. So once you've taken that out of the equation, there's literally going to be no business left. So I don't think that I would rather see postage cut to being delivered 2 or 3 days a week, but keep prices where if you do need to use it, it still is accessible.
Yeah. And this is the madness of their lock-in to this sort of, 6 day a week delivery.
Yeah.
This is something I used to work for a wholesaler that distributed all the newspapers and magazines to retailers around the UK. It used to be called WH Smith, was then called Smith's News. And this is something we were wrestling with for years because similar to letters, newspapers are in structural decline. They have been as long as I've been alive and working in them. And the issue is you still have to go to every retailer every morning and the volume you're taking just decreases and decreases and decreases. And there's only so much consolidation you can do. So first they start by consolidating the warehouses into these super houses. So they perhaps have one in every town 30 years ago. Then they have one, but the drive times get bigger and then they consolidate the runs. But it gets to a point where it just doesn't become a viable business anymore.
Yeah.
And this is exactly, I think you're going to see this with newspaper distribution very soon. I'm amazed it's not here already, where they're just going to be grappling with this challenge of you're not going to be able to buy in every retailer. Actually, it's going to become a luxury and you're probably going to only be able to buy it in supermarkets, for example, or whatever it is. Otherwise, the cost model of distribution is just not going to stack up.
Yeah.
And Royal Mail are just, they're grappling with the same thing here, but they've got their hands tied behind the back where they can't make their own decision about reducing the number of days that they do that delivery.
Yeah, which in hindsight, I think if they were to buy that business again, do you think that they expected the decline of post to be so significant? Probably, because they were investing so heavily in the parcel market. But did they think that the government and the regulators would be holding them to the 6 days a week? And I do think really, why is the government saying that's got to be 6 days a week? People keep giving this argument of old people, they get their NHS letters and things like that. And it's like, really, how many old people have got such urgent medical appointments that it needs to be next day delivery?
Can't be 2 days. I mean, even if you cut the number of times by 50%, you'd be going every other day. I just think, I agree. With the business hat on, I'm sure they would have thought they're of course going to work with us as the country evolves and people's consumer habits evolve. To not work with them just shows a total disregard in the understanding of business, doesn't it? And that's typical of government. They're just like, no, you decide to take this, tough luck.
This is your problem.
Yeah.
But I mean, we do direct mail. It's one of the advertising methods that we use in Profit Cash Growth, and it is making me think, a bit more carefully about sticking letters in the post, because by the time we put, pack the letter up and got it to the post office, and we put some jelly beans in the letters as well. So all of these things are sort of increasing the price. However, if the amount of things that people are receiving in the post is decreasing, then it does make that direct marketing more impactful logically.
And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because just like you say, the difference of, I mean, it's the equivalent to email, isn't it? If you sent an email marketing campaign 30 years ago, when somebody was getting 2 or 3 things in their inbox versus 100 a day. And that's the same thing with post now. You've got 20 million, you've got 3 million now. I mean, the power of when that letter comes through, I mean, isn't it wonderful when you hear your letterbox go nowadays? You run to it because it's got to be something exciting because who else would send something through the post? So yeah, it's It's an interesting one, but yeah, it can only continue to go one way if they're going to hold them to those number of deliveries. So we'll just see where that goes.
Yeah, but if you're doing direct marketing, I mean, like us, I wouldn't suggest that you're stopping your direct marketing because of an increase, but do really keep an eye on those numbers and make sure that you are still continuing to get a good return, and that you're not better off putting that marketing spend into something different.
Absolutely. Or even just spreading a little bit. You can, again, like you say, you don't have to cut it out, but you can reduce it, and spread that spend somewhere else and just dilute it slightly. Brilliant. Well, let's move on to this week's deep dive, Claire, where we're going to talk about how to discount and promote profitably. So, Claire, this week I'm going to open the deep dive discussion with a story. And I said a few weeks ago, do you remember when we were talking about Tupperware and genericization? Yeah. And I said that I had a story about Hoover. And rather than use it as a news story, I wanted to expand on it for our listeners to help educate in terms of how to discount and promote profitably. This is a story of Hoover, who obviously massive brand, started in 1908. In 1992, Hoover decided to do one of its boldest incentives yet. The offer that they put out to the market was buy a Hoover for £100 or more and receive 2 free flights to Europe or the US. You know where this is going, don't you, Claire?
I do know where this is going. Yes, I do.
So the outcome of this promotion, unsurprisingly, Hoover were rushed off their feet. Sales went through the roof, but guess what else did? Costs. Their factory was running day and night. And at the end of the promotion, they had the cost of the flights they're given away totaled £50 million. And the value of the vacuum cleaners that they sold totaled £30 million with a net zero £20 million profit. This actually led to the president of Hoover losing his job and in the entire executive board, actually.
I mean, when you look at the numbers behind this, it sounds staggering. And this is just a fundamental mistake that Hoover made when they did this calculation. And to be fair, it was the first time that they'd ever done a promo like this. But they said spend £100 or more. Firstly, they expected people to spend more, but people were going and buying a Hoover just to get the discount on flights. And at the time, flights to America were around £600. Two tickets would cost £600. So you could literally nip down the road to Argos, buy yourself a Hoover, and then nip next door to the travel agent and book your flights. Crazy. Now, Hoover thought that it was going to be okay when they crunched the numbers because they didn't think so many people would take it up because they put quite a lot of barriers in place. So once you'd bought your Hoover, you had to write to Hoover to request they send you a form. You had to fill out that form and then send it back to them, telling them what flights you wanted to book, and then they would give approval and send you a voucher, but they might not send you a voucher. They might send you a list of alternative flights to book, and then only once all of that has happened could you go and book your flights. So they just felt and you only had a 14-day period to do this all in. Yeah. So Hoover had miscalculated how many people were going to take up this offer, and that was fundamentally where this went wrong.
They fundamentally forgot how much effort a human would put in to a really, really good offer. I mean, the offer was just too good.
It was too
that
good.
The friction they put in place was acceptable for the offer, and they obviously completely missed that. Anyway,
I mean, I used to work at Bosch Siemens Home Appliances, and we used to do similar promotions where you could buy a washing machine or a Hoover or an oven or something like that and get sometimes up to £250 these prepaid cashback cards.
Yeah.
And I used to be the marketing accountant, so I would be crunching all the numbers to say, how much do we think this promotion is going to cost us? What would be the impact on the bottom line? And the number of people that would take up this cashback offer was just staggeringly low. Sometimes it was in low double digits. And we were talking sometimes £250 on a prepaid gift card just by simply going online and filling out a form, and people just didn't do it. So I can understand why Hoover thought that was the case. But maybe in the 90s, when, 1992, when this promotion was launched, the prospect of going to America was still quite novel for a lot of people. So I can see why it went so wild. But this went so catastrophically wrong. Not only did they lose their board, there was a big BBC panorama style investigation into it. There was legal cases, and they ended up losing their royal warrant. It was what led to them selling out to Candy. And, basically Hoover kind of just really exists mostly in the UK now. So it really caused a significant long-term impact to their business.
Defeated the brand entirely. Great. Well, the purpose of telling you that story is obviously if a brand as large as Hoover with a board of directors can make a mistake so catastrophic when they decide to discount and promote, I wanted to ask you, Claire, as a business owner and with the advice of a finance director sat alongside me, can you give us some hot tips about what I should be thinking about? So I want to discount or promote, I often think about this in my own businesses. We know that people do it regularly. What are the quick takeaways that I should be thinking about before I embark on that promotion that protects my business as best as possible? And, nothing's guaranteed and everything, we all boldly move forward with the level of risk every time we do something. But, what can we do, or what should we be doing to protect yourself?
So I think the first thing is you've got to know your numbers, and it's very easy to get blinded by your sales number, but you've got to be thinking about what the impact on your net profit would be.
Yeah.
That would be the number one thing. So I recently worked with a customer where they are more expensive. They're about 20% more expensive than their competitors. And they have been battling. They keep losing business because people are going to their competitors, and they wanted to reduce their price by 20%. But the problem is it's not just new customers. It's all their existing customers that they would take that. So immediately overnight, they would lose 20% off their turnover. Yeah. And therefore also that 20%, which I think would have accounted for maybe like 200 grand, would have come straight off of their profit as well. So it's that understanding that direct correlation between when you give 1% discount on your sales number, what does that do to your profit? You've got to have those numbers available.
You've got to understand the drop through, haven't you?
Yeah, because they wanted to decrease their prices by 20%, thinking that they would probably get a significant uplift in their sales, but they needed to increase their sales by more than 50% just to be at the same point again. So do they really want to serve 50% more customers for exactly the same profit?
I love
what would be the benefit in that.
The fact that you've spelt this out, and it sounds so blooming obvious when you say it, but business owners debate this all the time and just don't get it. I have this debate with, my own business partner when we're talking about, taking 10% off whatever else. And it really all boils down to when you decide to even take what you think is a small number off your sales number, 10%, but you're a business that makes a 10% profit margin, you're basically taking your profit to zero if you don't gain another customer.
Yeah.
And you really have to, and that's the unknown that even you as a finance director, you can model them out, but nobody knows which way the customer is going to go. Nobody knows exactly how many customers are going to gain by dropping 10% versus, the profit that they're going to get. And that's always the killer calculation to do, is that if you drop by 10%, you need to gain such a considerable amount of more customers if you're going to discount all your existing
just
customers.
To maintain your profit.
Just to maintain
and
your
I
profit.
think that's the thing that people lose sight of.
Completely.
Is that as soon as you run that discount, you are losing profit.
Yeah.
And so you've got to do a significant increase in sales just to return your existing profit before you've gone up at all. And I think that's the bit that people sort of get a bit blind to. And I think the second biggest thing that I've seen as well, my background is like in manufacturing and distribution and things like that. And it was always a little trick of ours. I say trick, I use trick in like inverted commas because I'm not sure that it's very successful. But when it got towards the end of the year, if we were thinking, oh, we need to increase our sales number a bit, we would discount. We would encourage people to buy bulk orders or, buy double and we'll give you a discount and things like that, which made, our year-end December look great. But all we're doing is shifting people's purchases from January into December at a cheaper rate.
Yeah.
And I think this is where you've got to be really careful that you don't just want to bring forward purchases, you need to increase purchases. So if you're thinking about just offering promotions to your existing customers rather than new customers, then you're at a significant risk of overall, if you took a 12-month period, not actually being up at all.
This is probably less of an issue for the businesses the size that we talk to, and more an issue when it gets to, PLC and governance and things like that, where people are, shareholders are expecting to see sales growth year after year after year, and those businesses use that discounting to massage the turnover to make those numbers look like they're going in a certain direction, to keep the stock price where it needs to be. It's not so much of an issue, and it's not something you should be chasing as a private business owner, is it?
I don't know, actually. I am working with people more and more where they have quite aggressive growth and they need external finance, and therefore we're looking at their numbers and we're saying, do you know what, because of the timing of when things have happened in the year, now we get to the year end, your accounts, because they're just literally a snapshot in time, and that's always the problem with year end accounts, they're not quite strong enough, even though we know that if you looked at these accounts in 3 months' time, they would portray a different picture because the growth would have kicked in. It's that making sure, how do we get your year-end accounts to look like you've got the right ratios to be able to get a finance agreement approved, for example. So it's actually more common than you would probably think in a small business, actually, especially if you're looking at external finance, even selling your business. All of these types of things come into it. There are all these sort of tricks that people use to inflate numbers in one period, but it leads to an issue later down the road.
You are indeed right.
Thanks, Simon.
You've just made me realise that, the amount of times that I overhear conversations you have with a number of your clients where actually the challenge around making sure those numbers looks right is about getting the next bit of finance or various things. So there is more to it than that.
Ironically, we were having this conversation about your business because your business partner needs to apply for a mortgage.
And because the housing market had a tough year last year and it had a blip, it causes a problem with your own personal ability to be able to source finance. So, interesting. So what else have we got, Claire?
So generally, I would say that if you're going to discount, you don't discount things that people are currently buying. You discount new product lines, or you're bundling to encourage them to buy more.
Interesting. Because I guess there's two other ways to think about it. I would always say that, people often say, smell what sells, double down on what sells, push that in further. And they say this a lot about when you're trying to, grow your skill sets. You focus on what you're good at. Don't focus on trying to, but you're saying discount the stuff that's struggling more.
Not necessarily struggling. So if I'm coming to you already, like if you think about a supermarket, I'm going to the supermarket and I'm going to buy like milk, bread and potatoes. I'm going into the supermarket to buy milk, bread and potatoes regardless of the price. And
they're never on promotion either. They're just well priced all the time.
What you want to try and get me to do is entice me to buy biscuits as well. Okay. So you put the biscuits at a really good discount. But if you just go in and take the price off the 3 core products that I'm buying anyway, all you've done is reduce your profit.
But arguably, I guess supermarkets do that because while you don't really see a promotion on milk, bread and eggs, they are inherently price sensitive. They're always as low as they can go because they're their loss leader to bring people into the store.
Yeah.
Because so you don't even know they're discounting, but they probably are.
Because they've got the data behind them that says as soon as somebody gets in the door, they buy on average X amount of products.
We'll get the basket spend up.
So that's the thing is like, if somebody is just buying one product or one package of products from you repeatedly, don't discount that. Discount something that makes them buy something more from you. Yeah. That's generally what I say. So, like another good example is like HelloFresh, for example, and all these like home deliveries, these Gusto boxes and things like that. You can get food boxes to your door. Yeah. They would have very solid data that says they know exactly what their average customer lifetime value is and what their retention is after this initial like 4-week promo that they do, or where you get your first free box or something like that. So I mean, we all see it. You get leaflets everywhere saying like your first box is like a £5 or something. And it's like a no-brainer for a week's worth of food, £5. So you go and get the HelloFresh box and it's like they will have very clear data that they know exactly how many people then continue that subscription and go on to become a full paying customer. So it's all about the data. And like we said with the supermarket, they know exactly how many people come in a door and how much they spend. So they can therefore model these calculations and say, I know that for every 15 customers that come through the door, they'll go on to buy milk and bread, and therefore our profit is X, therefore we've got this amount of wiggle room in the price of milk.
Okay. So moving on to another point, when you think about the Hoover example, you would have felt like they'd have known quite early on, based on the spend going out the door versus the sales coming in, that this was going in the wrong direction. Why didn't they just pull the deal?
They did try to, but they didn't have the right T's and C's in place.
Okay. And that moves on to our hot tip, which is the right to withdraw.
Yeah. And I think that's really incredibly important, that if you're going to be doing something like this, because especially, these days, anything can go viral all of a sudden online. And you might, particularly if you're maybe like a distribution or an e-commerce business or something like that, you might think it's a great idea to do loads of social media promotion around it and try and increase your sales. And then all of a sudden, you've got this unintended impact of potentially something going viral. Yeah. Maybe your business can't cope. Maybe you're attracting the wrong type of customers that are literally, coming in to get the deal, and they're not going to be long-term customers. So you really do need to be tracking live what's happening to make sure that it is delivering what you expect it to deliver for your business.
Yeah. Interesting.
One of the key things that I always say when we're looking at introducing like targets is you always want to use the power of three. So with something like doing a promotion, typically a business owner might say, well, we want to attract 10% new customers, or we want to increase sales by X, and they'll put like one headline target behind it. But with any target, it's always good practice to have the power of three. So you have your headline target, but you also have two supporting numbers behind it. So you might say the aim of this promotion is to increase sales in this product line by 20%. Okay. But you need two supporting numbers behind that to make sure that it's not having an adverse effect on the business. So headline number is increase sales by 20% whilst maintaining a gross margin of 40%.
Yeah.
And introducing customers in this demographic or something like that.
So you're setting up your promotion with those KPIs from the start. So I know that you're quite a big advocate for not creating the business side. So we talk about big annual budgets that you try and stick to. But what you're talking about here, which you are a big advocate of, I know you are, is to create these effective mini budgets that are right down to a product or a promotion, or, it's a cost benefit analysis. And that includes the KPIs that says, we're a week into the promotion and our KPI said that we're targeting sales up 20%, gross profit up this and net profit up 5%. And we are hitting these numbers and we're reporting back on them. So it's important that the business owner is leaning on their finance director or, their outsourced finance director, whoever they use, to be, working a bit more intensively with them during that period, to make sure that doesn't run out of control. Yeah,
you're absolutely right there. So I'm not a big fan of budgets. I think that particularly in small businesses, there's a lot of known knowns that recur every year. So why are we spending any time writing those down? Because we know what they are. And therefore, I like to focus on these changes. So, we're doing a promotion, we're taking on a new person, we're opening a new location, and we budget those quite intensively and plan what we think is going to happen. Then we track what's happening to make sure that it's the desired outcome.
Yeah. They're things that are going to move the dial.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I think that is enough for discounting, promoting for everyone to be getting on with for the time being. Thank you very much for your time today, Claire, on that.
And what is this week's Profit Cash Growth Extra, Simon?
Well, we went to see it last night, didn't we? So this week's Profit Cash Growth Extra is the film we watched last night, Claire.
Oh, it was epic. It was the Donald Trump film.
The Apprentice, so it was good, yeah. So this is coming out. Yeah, it will be on the cinema by the time this comes out. Been on for about a week, wasn't it? And yeah, we like it. It's if you like Succession, the Sky series, very similar in the way it is, and it's got the guy who plays Kendall in it, who plays Donald Trump's lawyer. And yeah, it's really good. It just follows the early story. To be honest, I kind of knew the story because I think there was a documentary that I watched about, building Trump Tower and building the casinos and struggling with the debt and various other things. Obviously, this is a very dramatized version of it, which was just good fun. I quite enjoyed it.
Do you know what? I think we probably are maybe more clued up than the average person on Donald Trump. We've read a few books and watched some documentaries and things like that. I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump. I think he's a great businessman and he's an appalling politician. But I actually came out of that liking Donald Trump more. And I don't think that was what the makers of the film thought was going to happen. But they somehow portrayed him as like this lovely, innocent, keen, young businessman who got corrupted by this lawyer. I think that's kind of the moral of the story.
They've also they kind of really had from an early age this narrative of make America great again. Like this core wants to do this for America, not for himself. And it was really it really came across like that. That actually I want to make New York amazing. I want to put New York on the map, and I'm doing it for the city and I'm doing it for the country. So yeah, really good film. Go and see it, The Apprentice, or wait for it to come out on I say DVD. It's probably not DVD now, but on the streaming Netflix services and various other things. So yeah, The Apprentice,
epic film, and
really good.
Yeah, do take it with a pinch of salt though. Remember, it's just a film, please, because it's
been dramatised in areas.
It's making me think I like Donald Trump now, and I'm really battling with my emotions today.
So thanks for joining us for another podcast. If you did like this, please just click the share button on it. If you know any 6 or 7 figure business owners, maybe you mingle in masterminds, or some aspiring 6 and 7 figure business owners that are just going to get massive value from the content that we we've put out today and any of our back catalogue, please, again, as I say, just tap the share, stick it on a text message, say, hey man, I think you'll like this podcast, and it helps. Our listenership is growing every week. We've had a nice big lumpy leap in the last couple of weeks, so we know that more and more people are getting great value from hearing from a qualified finance director. And if you feel like you may have outgrown your current accountant, do get in touch with Claire and the team at Profit Cash Growth. You can go to profitcashgrowth.com and you check out the YouTube channel and just reach out, book a free financial health check of your business, and we'll see how we can help you as well. And don't forget, rate, review and subscribe to the podcast if you like us.